academia the chance. I'm trying to get 254 to co-host, and it's giving me trouble. Academia.
Okay, redeemed. I think what we need to focus. I think the old version of politicians thought that they underrated the power of social media, but as it stands today, they do recognize that social media, especially X space, where it provides a platform for people to ventilate their grievances, is a very powerful tool, especially for Kenya, who are very active in issues to do with politics. And there's as well recognized both local and abroad. That's it is very important for Kenya to undertake such things. And with the time, what we are fighting for will come to light. It's just a matter of time. We cannot overhaul the whole system at once, but we can see the product of active engagement for very many years from the civil society, churches, and the professionals as well. So we are on the right track, and we don't need to rush over things. We just need to take step by step. So now that it's like they say, you cannot teach an old dog, is not almost possible. Then what we need to do is to eradicate the old dog one by one. And in this context, I would say that can we go to the smallest unit of politics, where we start from the families, because the ethnic group we cannot do away with. Once you are born, you must be identified either with this person or the other person, because we don't have people where we are born, and no child knows who is going to give birth to them. So you must be born within Kenya. If you're a Kenyan, you must be born with by Kenyan parents or by Kenyan citizen, and therefore you become a Kenyan. But first of all, your ID reads somewhere, so you belong to a certain group. Now, that one should not bar you from ascending to any public office or any political office. So what we need to do is to ensure that we recognize ethnicity, which is a good thing, but we fight tribalism, which again uses that ethnicity to make people develop a negative attitude towards other people. So let's start with what we are doing, which is very important. First of all, in fact, we should advocate for people to ethnically identify themselves. If you want to cure it, recognize, accept that you are a Luo, you are a Kikuyu. Once that is done, then we move to the next level. If you fail to make them recognize their ethnicity, then you are breeding a problem. So allow people to understand their ethnicity and enjoy that to their fullest time. Then we now move to the next phase, which is tribalism, which has been deviling this country over the years. And it's very easy to deal with it. Yeah. The reason why we are not able to deal with it is that we are denied to recognize ourselves as an ethnic group. So it only appears when we are going for election. And that is why in schools, people enjoy engaging other people from other regions. If you happen to be in a school where you have so many tribes, you realize that people tend to learn from other. And at the school level, it is very good for us to learn from another group. You socialize and you don't practice that tribalism. But at the national level is when you realize that you don't need to have a Kamba in State House because we are not in good terms with the Kamba. So let us recognize our ethnicity, and then we start developing nationhood instead of country, because we have a country, but we lost the nation with our which our forefathers fought for. So 204, 254, am I landing? Can I land? I've seen you raise up your hand. Give you 1 minute to land. Fine. So we start by electing good MCAs and MPs. So once we have good people in the National Assembly, we are rest assured that we can get good leaders, because I believe it is the National Assembly that can save us a lot. When we rush to the CEO of the country, it is not very easy for that CEO of the country to overturn things when the National Assembly, we have elected crooks. So let us avoid politics of money. We elect people based on merit. It is not an easy task, but we should embrace it moving forward in spaces like this one, that with the time we will get what we want. But we cannot get it overnight, or we cannot say 2027, it is going to be a game changer. Let us start by eradicating these people one by one. Otherwise, we cannot eradicate them at once, because they also understand this game. So we want to join it there. Let us not play smart. Let us go with them in that muddy place and play their games there, while knowing what we want. Thank you.
Two five four, I can't hear you. By Mungi, you can go on.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Just a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Okay. Now, I want to agree with the academy that we need to wrestle with the pigs. We need to wrestle with the pigs completely and accept that this time we are wrestling with the pigs, and do it without mercy. Because we need to secure this next election. And from that point, I need to say that the most immediate things, the most immediate Goliaths that we need to slay is we need to defend our IEBC. There is a couple of bills in there, like that one for streaming results directly to bombers. For me, the way I've analyzed it is very dangerous, because a streamed result from a polling station directly to bombers is a final result. If they stop streaming that result, it is not final, which means it can be cooked and salted and seasoned by whoever returning officer or at bombers by however they want to do it. So we need to stop that. A result at a polling station is final, and when it is streamed to bombers, that is what is declared. So I think we need to fight that. That is one Goliath. The second Goliath we need to fight is this person called Bill Gates. He needs to leave this country. And then he also needs to be held to account for those babies who are lost in the polio vaccines, because that polio vaccine apparently was also sponsored by him or something from India. We don't know the entire facts. I'm very afraid of vaccines because I've seen them go wrong in other countries. So if they start vaccinating people without telling us, this vaccine is built like this, it's safe, it's not safe, what are the side effects? Those scare me. I'm very happy LSK have secured wametoa ye immunity alikuwa amepatiwa. I'm very happy about that. He no longer has national immunity na hizo vitu zote. So if he does anything here in Kenya and something goes wrong, we'll take him to court. Another Goliath we need to slay is this agricultural bills. The GMO bills, the mkulima lazima akue na sijui degree and diploma. Those sijui lazima they have to come and check your soil. Those agricultural, they are going to cut the feet of farmers. I am speaking as a farmer. As my family, my sisters, my brothers, we all decided to do farming. And every bill that is coming along is going to disable us, and not short-term, long-term, because we are smallholder, we are starting out. And when these bills go through, they are going to only enable one thing: industrial farming, large-scale industrial farming. Small farmers cannot compete with that. And that's why you see they opened up the GMO thing, so that they can do large-scale industrial farming. We cannot compete with that when we're doing organic stuff. We need to defend our farmers. If we defend our farmers, we defend good food that is good for us. If they do industrial large-scale GMOs, tutaanza kupata funny cancers and weird diseases that we see out in the Western world. We do not want that. We do not want to. Things already went wrong for them. We don't want those same things to go wrong for us. So as I learned with the last Goliath, it's a tribal Goliath. Again, as academia said, it's a reality of life. We cannot escape it. But let it not be used against us. We are wiser now. We can see them now. So when your friend, your neighbor, your colleague is being tribal, tell them no. Tell them that the taxes don't care if you're tribal. Tell them that when those people are being shot in the streets, those bullets, they do not care if you come from a particular tribe. You see, you tell them that bad policies that affect farmers, they don't care if that farmer is in Rift Valley, if that farmer is in Kisii, they don't care. Bad policies affect everyone the same. So that's the fourth Goliath we need to fight. And with those ones, I learned.
I don't know why we're not hearing 254. Thank you very much, Baimungi. We're waiting until 9 o'clock, and then we will send the apology, because when someone tells you they will come, you don't want to say they will not come. 254, can you try to speak? And ladies and gentlemen, kindly request for the mic and tell us what your Goliath is. (254) Okay, 254, I don't think we can hear you. You might have to leave the space and come back. I can see Abdullah. I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, it's me again, Baimungi. I wanted to add one last thing. There's a last Goliath we need to select. Let us not wait for people to run for offices. If you're here in this space, if you attend these spaces and you think you can perform in a public office, if you think you can do public service, if you think you can serve the people and defend this nation, be one of the people to stand and run for an office. Pick an office: MCA, MP, governor, women rep, whatever is there, for the service of the people. That's another Goliath we need to, because these people go and bring their own people. And someone described very well what Raila does. Raila holds someone's hand and say, vote for this one. We don't want that anymore. Let us pick our own people from our own communities, people we know, to siletewe watu tena. So if you're in this space and you feel like you can do public service, and it is in you to serve the people, that's another Goliath we can fight and defeat. Tusikue tunaletewa watu anymore. Thanks. That's the last point.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm trying to see if Amenyi can join us. Abdullah, you're here, you're a speaker. Always a pleasure to have you. We're talking about humanizing the struggle. All of us at a very personal level have been activating at something. Others are already at strategizing level. What are the Goliaths, and are we slaying this one ama tunachezewa mchezo wa taoni? Abdullah, karibu.
Thank you very much, my sister, and good afternoon to the fellow Kenyans. I just came back from a meeting. I'm in Wajir County, and since I came, I met my immediate family members and community about the, importance and how visible is it for us now than ever on how to take part in all political activities. And in Kenya today, resources are going with politics because a member of parliament is managing close to 170 something million. Counties are receiving, like in northern Kenya, like Mandera, Wajir, Garissa are receiving a minimum of 12 billion. So I was telling them, how crucial it is for people to take part in political activities, because if you don't, then you'll always be complaining of things that you must always take part in. And I agree that power is taken, no one is going to front. I agree that if you have some level of knowledge, skills, leadership, honesty, experience, that you think you can front some ideas and people can, coalesce around that in making sure that communities thrive. And I was telling them, as a family, let's make sure every single family first, we are going to school. We are, for us in the north, we have Islamic teachings, Muslim, teachings, Arabic, and, all these things, so that when the child is grown up and goes to school, at least he speaks 3 international languages. He speaks French, he speaks English, Swahili, Arabic, because resources are becoming scarce, opportunities are becoming scarce. You can have an opportunity to work in these countries if you are exposed. But you see, if you don't go to a technical school, if you don't have a skill, then you'll be forced to stay around and doing some normal thing that any other African does, which is either selling a shop or doing this and that. So I am just from a meeting of the same. But as a country, if we have to change, the problem with our country is the majority of people in the rural areas are living absolutely, if you look at them, at abject poverty. If you travel around this country, so those of us who have the will, the ability to dare the system, we have to contest. And I say, as I say always in other platforms, this struggle is not easy. It's going to take some time to materialize, just the way it took 61 years since 1963 to be at where we are. Currently, Wajir County is going through transformation in terms of roads. For the first time, kwa village ama kwa bula ama kwa outskirt, people you'll see kids for the first time buying bicycles, because Wajir is sandy, and if you don't have either a tarmac road, it will be quite hard for children to cycle. So you'll see people buying bicycles, you'll see roads being expanded, you'll see hospital like in Wajir. I was told currently they are building all the referrals so that they don't refer people to Kenyatta. We're all making progresses, but still it's not maybe as much as we can. And I was telling my community here, if we cannot produce our own food and we cannot sustain ourselves, if we don't take our kids to school to learn, not just because to get a job, but to have education, because education gives you the ability to honestly judge between wrong and right, bad and good. So the struggle continues. I am happy since July or June last year, or since we got the new constitution, Kenyans are beginning to have a discourse, a discussion on how they want this country governed. I normally tell people we are more than 190 countries among the UN members. Africa, we have 50-something countries. This is a struggle around the world. I mean, if you go to US today, people are complaining about homelessness. So as a country, we need a better, leadership in terms of human beings. The issue of institutions working. Institutions will work as good. Let's say a High Court judge. If the High Court judge is corrupt, then you don't expect him to dispense, a fair judgment because he's corrupt. If a police officer is collecting 50 shillings, you don't expect them to, enforce traffic laws. If a medical doctor is stealing drugs from the, hospital, taking it to his private clinic, then you see, there's nothing you can do about that person. Because regardless of how much laws you have, regardless of how much offices you have, these offices and these institutions are run by human beings. So the human beings who are running these institutions, do they have values? Do they have the self-respect for themselves that this is an institution that you're working in the future of people, of citizens of this country? And that's why we have the problem around, across the country. Every county is struggling. Some counties have not received money. You've seen the push and pull between the national government and the county government. You've seen today the High Court has completely stopped the takeover of ADANI. So I agree we need men and women to come forward and say, this must stop. From the MCS 1,450, those are the number of wards we have. We have 290 members. We have 47 governors, 47 senators, 47 women reps, 47 deputy governors. This is a huge chunk of people who, if they all desire to change Kenya, Kenya can be paradise. We have the most beautiful country. I mean, if you travel through the north, like it's raining now in northern Kenya. I mean, Wajir, it rained today, it rained last week. You will not see anyone collecting, harvesting water. You will not see any plan of even harvesting water. You will not see plans of, farming in 500,000 acres. You won't see, because people are busy running after some contracts, doing petty things here and there, thinking that this is the way how to run country. So I think we Kenyans are in the right track. These things take time. We will be patient. We will rather correct things from within correctly than destroy the nation. The state is very rogue. The state is very powerful. All our taxes are used by 3 million people. That's the sad part of this country. Every Kenyan is struggling to pay tax, but that tax is only fattening and feeding less than 3 million people. So that itself we must question. Our taxes, because we can start thinking of a line where we say, why don't we have free primary education, free secondary education? What is this nonsense with all bursaries? An MC has a bursary, a member of parliament has a bursary, the county government has a bursary. I mean, why don't we just, put all these funds in one bank account, have data of the number of primary kids, the number of secondary students, the number of universities, and then we make our education very free. Kenya is very expensive in terms of, you'll see schools paying $1 million, others are paying 100,000, 200. But the lower cadre, which is close to 70%, we are struggling with primary and secondary schools where the ratios of teacher to student is very, very high, 60, 70, 80. Whereas in Finland or Japan or those countries is maybe 1 to 15 or 1 to 20. So all these things are the challenges we have. We are a very small democracy. But I'll always say, let us not destroy the country, because Somalia has been destroyed, Sudan has been destroyed. You see what Congo is going through. So in the desire to change things, we can make it worse. So we should be very careful. I have seen already some people saying Maraga will be the president, rather Matiangi, Didi Nyoro to be deputy president. But if you look at the other people coalescing around them, Madakarua, Eugene Wamalwa, Kioni, Kalonzo Musyoka, these are guys who are around for the last 40, 50 years. What is it that they have today that is new? There is nothing new they're going to offer. If you're in government for 40 years, or let's say someone from northern Kenya was working for the national government for the last 40 years, they were in leadership for the last 20 years, they want to become a governor now. I mean, is your brain developing new cells that you're going to have new ideas? So this thing needs new thinking. It needs, a lot of Kenyans who will say, let us have a new way of doing things. Let's take our salary, let's take our allowance, and let's put all other money in the items so that Kenyans can have a quality life. Kenyan standard of living is very poor, and leaders are very comfortable for Kenyans to suffer. So I think we are in the right track as a country, and we must get more Goliaths across the country to take part in the changes we want in 2027. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana Abdullahi, and thank you for joining us all the way from Wajir, and we look forward to still having these conversations. Now, I had been chatting with Nelson earlier. I didn't think he would show up. Of course, I was expecting the senator because he had confirmed. But in my conversations with both gentlemen, they are an unlikely duo.
Redemptor, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. I just wanted you to tell you to mute the other mic so that we don't get interference.
Okay. Yes, I can see whose mic is on. Ronyo, your mic is on. I don't want to have to mic. I was introducing Nelson Amenya. He's not a stranger to Kenya. He's trending all over the world. The Indians love him. They first hated him, and now they love him. He's been making documentaries all over. But it has come at a price. I mean, we humanize the struggle. And Nelson, I'll be very honest with you. The first time I saw you as this young man who looks like a computer guy. And you came to our show and you told us about Adani. And then towards the end of that show, you started talking about the shisha. You know, it was a shock because even earlier when we had spoken, you had not talked about it. And I find you unlikely duo with the Senator Onyonka because he's more loud. He's always on TV interviews. You're more soft-spoken, but yet you've been able to walk that journey. When you started saying airport inauzwa like that young man, at first people didn't take you seriously, or they thought it was propaganda. So we look at this as a Goliath situation, and the first question we ask is: the Goliath really down? We know it can look like it's staggering, imegongwa na mawe. It's staggering back, but is it really falling? What do you know about the withdrawal? Is it just lip service? We know Anthony was here earlier, but we gave him the mic. He would have posted some things on our Jumbo trip. Nelson, karibu.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not a loud person, but I am quite a confident person in person if you meet me. So the big question is the Goliath slain, or he's just wounded and he'll come back. So we can never really tell at this point, but all we know is that for now, he is down. All the contracts have been stopped. And what I want to say is that Adani he's just a front. He is not the one who had 100% interest in our assets. Of course, he and Modi, the Prime Minister of India, they have a very clear strategy. So their strategy was to counter Chinese influence in the global south. And, right now, if you follow geopolitics, India and China are clashing because most industries are moving away from China and setting up in India because of cheap labor, better policies. China is experiencing a downturn right now. So China's economy isn't that great. So investors are running away from China and going to India and Southeast Asia. So countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, many investors, many companies are setting up factories in these countries, especially India right now. If you look at Apple, they used to manufacture most of their components in China. Now they do it in India. If you look at companies, fashion companies, for example, Zara or which other big brands, Louis Vuitton. So all these Western brands, they're now moving their manufacturing to India. So there is obviously some geopolitical tensions between India and China, and India is taking advantage of the economic downturn of China to go to the global south. So countries, you've seen them in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in Tanzania, in Kenya, they're going to Egypt, they're going to Zambia, they're going to Morocco. So this is their strategy, and Modi was using Adani to execute this strategy. That's why everywhere Modi goes, Adani also follows, and what follows is contracts. So what you need to understand is that these concessional agreements are very popular, and they've been there since the colonial times. And that's how these colonial powers like France, like the UK, like the US, well, the US was came after, but they all used concessional agreements to colonize Africa. And the way they did it is exactly how India is doing it. It's not even new. The playbook is the same. So they come, they enter into a concessional agreement. They tell you they will invest money because you don't have the money to do this infrastructure projects. Once they invest, the project goes south, and they take over the assets. So this is what China was about to do to some ports in Africa, but now they're not powerful enough. So what you end up doing, for example, what Adani was doing in Kenya, he will take over the airport, he will take over the port of Mombasa, he will take over the power grid. Once a country controls your electricity, that's it. They control everything because this is a factor of production. And within 50 years or within the 30 years they are going to operate, Adani would be technically controlling our economy. And if we refuse or if we are unable to pay, if you remember that in the contract of JKIA, they were going to be paid 18% IRR. IRR is internal rate of return every year, irrespective of whether they make the money out of JKIA or not. The government has to make sure that they give them 18% of their initial investment, so of the 2 billion. So this means that in the event where JKIA does not make enough money to pay them, they're going to either take JKIA, away from Kenya and own it for even a longer period. And this is what led to the colonization of African countries. So it's bigger than what you're seeing today. And even when you ask yourself, is the Goliath slain? Well, of course, for the moment he is down, but the strategy that India has still holds, and we don't know how much they will push. And also, they're being pushed by very powerful financiers. So the UAE is behind them. When Adani was hit by the Hindenburg scandal, the Hindenburg report, the shares went down, the market capitalization went down, and it's the UAE that actually bailed them out. So through a company called International Holding Company. International Holding Company is the same company that owns Apiero, which is in Shif. So you see, there is a lot of connection, and the UAE, they have a lot of money to invest, and they're investing through Adani. In Dar es Salaam, there is Dubai Port that is part of the takeover of Dar es Salaam port, which Adani also took a few berths. So, and Dubai Ports is also owned by, the UAE. So they're the main financiers of Adani. And, for them, they really don't care about bribery, about corruption. For them, they just invest in companies that are willing to go where they have business interests. The UAE is in Sudan. Actually, you have seen the president. He has for a long time been seen with the brother of Hemeti. Hemeti is one of the guys fighting in Sudan, one of the generals. So this guy is being bankrolled by UAE. So it's a lot of geopolitics, and we don't know what will happen next, or what they will pull off. But we need to keep fighting. We cannot let our guard down. It's the bigger picture is something, when you think about, looks so big, and you wonder whether you will defeat them or you will win. But if we manage to bring down these Adani deals until the president cancels them, it means it's possible to completely remove them from our country. So we just need to keep fighting. The indictment in the US is a good thing. So if this kind of things continue to come together, well, it will create good chaos that in the end will help us. So yeah, this is what I think, and this is my submission. Thank you, Redemptor.
Thank you, Nelson. I was hearing your submission, and you said some very interesting things, and I think a lot of Kenyans are wondering how you've correlated, the geopolitics and how now Adani becomes a very serious Goliath to focus on. So my question is basically for now, to make it a bit simpler, why is it you feel? I know Anthony has mentioned that there's this court case that they've been having, that now they want, it's in partnership with Tony Gashoka and Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Wamalwa, and they've been asking for these contracts to be made public. I think for them the request has been to the court, so that these contracts that were being put across by Adani be made public. But for me, the question would be, is it possible for Kenyans to really understand the magnitude of such a contract being offered by an external company owned by foreign investors? Now that you've been able to be, to know what's going on, how can you be able to explain to Kenyans in a more simpler way how it is very dangerous for such a contract to come into the country without us knowing what is exactly put in that contract?
I think the same way we did with the finance bill, there was a lot of mobilization, a lot of graphics, putting everything into perspective for everybody to understand how we mobilized for this Adani JKIA deal. It's the same way we need to also, break down all this geopolitics into very simple terms so that everybody understands the magnitude of, everything going on. It's not just an Indian company coming to Kenya to exploit the key infrastructure. No, it's part of a bigger playbook. And if people understand this, then, it will cause them to be more vigilant. I mean, they will be, the people will take it more seriously, But for the moment, people just think this is just one greedy businessman trying to take advantage of, a country that is in debt, a country that needs to show that it's, a president who needs to show that he's working. But this is not, it's not the whole story. So we need to do more mobilization. We need to do more graphics. We need to break down everything, all the information, and let the people know, just the way everybody right now in the country knows that the airport was about to be sold for 30 years. Is the same way we need to make people understand that it's part of a bigger plot, for India to influence, to have more influence in the global south, because it's becoming stronger. It's projected that India will become a superpower, one of the big economies in the world in the next 30 years. So this is their strategy to getting there. Yeah, so this could be a way of, this could be a strategy to make people understand.
Thank you, Nelson. I think my follow-up question would be this. I know a lot of people have celebrated that now these Adani contracts have been killed. However, I just wanted to make a follow-up because there's been, we've had them asking of suggestions, and a couple of people have thrown out a few ideas of, making JKIA an IPO so that everyone can buy shares into the airport, so that now it's crowd-funded by Kenyans, and then now Kenyans can be able to do whatever expansion that the government deems necessary. In your opinion and in your expertise, do you feel like making, instead of looking at now a public-private partnership, would this be better placed, it being like a government-citizen partnership, whereby the citizens are allowed to invest in such public institutions, and then now they can be able to also get reports on development agendas, profitability, what's the expansion plans that are in place? Because as I sit, for me here today, the only time I've heard about this so-called JKI expansion was it being very loud after, this Adani thing came about. But before, it was always, the airport is leaking, we want to fix and repair, the leaking roofs, and now we have power problems, so we need to upgrade the backup power, and a certain MD at Kenya Airports Authority was suspended or fired, But ever since Adani came up is when all these politicians keep talking about this expansion and why we need a bigger airport. So do you think it is better placed if citizens are allowed to fund this money and then now question everything that is, is going to take place at the airport?
So